All right. Robert here. Great. Well, thank you everyone for jumping in. And I guess this would be considered our first official demo to the broader community at large of Summit events. That's not at a conference, I guess I should call out. We've done a couple of those. But wanted to welcome everybody. And I think we're really excited to start doing more of these demos to not only get feedback and engagement, but really looking to highlight the things that we have been working on. So I think they're all things that people might want feedback in before things get released. So I'm really excited to do this. So I'll introduce myself. I have a brief agenda here. We can click over. My name is Ryan Blake. And I am currently the solutions engineer at Cloud for Good, which is a Salesforce consulting partner. I previously worked at the University of St. Thomas, which is how I initially got involved with this project, and have been in higher ed was in higher ed for over 10 years, starting and got my roots in admissions and recruitment, which is, so you'll see that within the app itself if you're not already familiar. But that's me in a quick nutshell. But I'm going to pass it over to Thad for himself.
So fun introducing yourself. I'm Thad Dahlberg. I work at the University of St. Thomas, formerly with Ryan. I'm a senior software engineer here, and I started my career at St. Thomas, embedded in admissions as well. So Ryan and I have been following each other around, though I'm probably not going to follow him to Cloud for Good. I started working on Summit events as UST events with some people in the room here. And we kind of developed it off of some events and applications and things we had running already that weren't Salesforce. And we needed to move our engagement into Salesforce. So that's kind of where Summit events started, as a very hard-coded kind of St. Thomas application. And then we were encouraged to share it more broadly by Salesforce, salesforce.org, and their open source commons community.
Awesome, thank you. So, and we're not going to go too much into the history today. We're hoping today to focus on Summit events specifically. What we can see on here, we'll do a high-level demonstration of a simple event. During that, I think some of the future release things will be seen, but I'm not going to try and dwell on it, because I think that is the thing we're going to dive into shortly after, is really talk about what's in this next release, what we're looking at having in this next release, focusing on those three primary elements of labels and layouts, the question object, which will probably take up a bulk of that time, and then bringing up the conversation around payments and what it is we're looking at there. And then we're really reviewing a more complex event, and I would say some of that might be time permitting, but looking at how complex we can get in different use cases that we can talk through by looking at actually the event that you guys potentially used to register for. And if you didn't, that's totally fine. But it'll at least give you some context as to how complex we can make things and what capabilities we're going to have as part of that, and then leave some time for question and answer and allow us to dive in and show more things as the questions might pertain to that. So that is the agenda. I think I'm just going to go to one slide right now before I actually jump into the Salesforce, or maybe two slides, but really talk about kind of what the vision of this overall project is. So I think, Thad, you articulated well, like this all started as a project specifically at St. Thomas. And it was through our engagements with Salesforce, being able to bring this into the general community. And I think this is where this vision statement started to really form, is making sure that we have a sustainable application that does serve a broad variety of needs for EDUs and NGOs, and that it has the flexibility and it can work on any data architecture, really thinking about this from the education data architecture to the nonprofit to no specific data architecture, just Salesforce directly, right? That all you need to use this is Salesforce. You don't need anything else beyond that. So that is kind of the focal point of where we work to continue to improve this, and where we're getting our feedback from is from the education and nonprofit community. There's a full V2MOM on our GitHub page that we won't go through now, but I encourage you to check out if you're interested. But really want to start with like the kind of what I would call the core foundation of what Summit Events is built on. And I call this out because this is what we're going to focus on for the simple event component of it. And that it's all built on like 3 building blocks, that being the highest level, and thinking about this in a hierarchy format, the event, which is really, I think on here, right, dictating the look and feel. I tend to articulate it as it's creating the experience you're wanting the registrant to have, from not only what it looks like, but what questions you're asking, and how you want things to be displayed and articulated. That then gets down to an instance level, which is really capturing the date and times in which people are registering for, but also controlling capacity, as well as potentially some other hyperlinked or override information that might be different from one another. So being able to say that you have a, if you look at it from a higher ed instance, like tours happen regularly, rather than creating them all and creating a unique experience for each one, you can create a common experience and have multiple instances across there, which is why we can see that there's 2 there. And then the registration record, which is capturing that information off the bat, and being able to associate to a contact or lead, really making sure that as people are registering, we are integrating it entirely with your database and not keeping that data siloed off to the side for you to try and figure out what to do with it later. And we want to make sure that it seamlessly works as part of the overall process of how you're leveraging Salesforce platform, CRM, and all that. So before I'm gonna go through the next slide too, because I think it shows the full scope. So keep these 3 kind of foundational objects in mind. The whole product or package of what Summit Events is starts to really expand though. So while we have the 3 things highlighted right in the middle, the event, the instance, and the registration, this is where we start to see how much more we can do with it, and looking at what would be an appointment type or sessions, having hosts, emails and triggered emails off the objects. I have question in blue because that's one of the things that will come up in the next release that we'll talk about later today. And then there is a payment structure and foundation to be able to take payments as it relates to an event. So to be honest, I don't know this. Oh, so this is all backend, right? This is backend of how it's set up. But then Summit Events is not just a backend system management. It is also displaying that front end, those front end forms. And those forms are built by what you put in on the back end on some of these objects. But then there's a page progression also associated to this, depending on how you have it set up. So we can see that there's 8 different pages associated, or 7 different pages associated here. And depending on the, we'll call it toggles that you select, it's going to display those pages with the information that you put on it and the questions that you might be associating to it. So all those things are mapped, and we walk you through that within the application itself. So the page progression becomes really important in terms of what that registration experience is. So I don't know if you have anything you want to add, Thad, in this lens.
No, I'll save my voice for when I have to talk about the question object.
That sounds good. So I'm gonna back out of this. I'm just gonna go over. So right now I'm just in a developer environment. So this is actually where you guys registered. So we actually probably won't keep this one too long, but we'll see that across the top we have all of the primary objects that we're working with. I'm just going to go to Summit Events, and I'm just going to start a new one as I'm going to demonstrate just a simple event. So if I do new, and this is what I'm going to call out, one of the new things we have coming in this release is this new form you can see is really long. I think when we initially loaded this, or created this, we had all of this on a single page, which can be extremely daunting, and also like, what is it we really need to get this going? So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to fill out a couple of these top things, and then save it, and then shift to and kind of look how we've tried to make the page progression a little bit better. So I'm just going to use very generic terms and just call this a simple event. And we do have a lot of help text here. So all these eyes that are here, for those that are not as familiar with Salesforce specifically, it's the help text to try and give you some context as to what it is doing or where it might display. By giving it a name, an event type, which becomes really valuable in reporting. I'm just going to call this a info session. Here, let's do this. Let's do Summit Events demo. Start date, let's put one out there for, we'll put that out there for April, just because I think we already have one for March. And the one thing that I already did here is like the start date and end date. Well, this would be the event. If we look at the help text, the start date here is actually when the registration opens. You may want to have registration open earlier than that, and I'll show you why in just a minute. But we're going to keep it in a broad range. We want it to close, essentially it'd be taken off on the 14th or the 15th of April. And then we want to start making sure that these things are active. But one of the things that I think when we talked with particularly the admissions team at St. Thomas, this is really helpful to be able to put something in planning so that you can come back to it, that you don't feel like you have to do it in one shot and then you don't have all the information you need to ahead of time. So being able to put in a planning state to make sure that if you don't want it displayed or you don't want people to be registered for it yet, you can have it in a planning status. I'm going to put it to active because where we're at. The template, this is where we have the opportunity to create things more customizable. So we have a generic general Salesforce Lightning design system template in here. So you have something ready to go right out the box. But then you also can select some things to be able to make it customized to your website. This would be either a combination of you creating a Visualforce page and putting some context in it, or working with your web team to really make it specifically match what your website is. But we have some instructions on our wiki page about how to do that. And I wouldn't be surprised if we did a demo session on specifically how to do that at some point. But I'm going to keep it as just generic for right now. Homepage and where we're going to direct people to. So we can put a link in here so that somebody could be redirected to a certain web page. This is our GitHub page, short URL to our GitHub page, and we're just going to keep it as register. So once I have this is a point to where I could save it and then continue. I'm going to go and just grab this location stuff. I'll come back to this registration links in a minute. I don't want you to think I'm overlooking it. We're going to put online for location title. We're just going to put Zoom, and then audience. This audience, while these values come out of the box, this audience could be tailored to your organization. So I think most people here are coming from higher ed, but if it was nonprofit and we were talking about membership or non-members, we could instill those audiences in here as part of the pick list and help control some of the filtering of the calendar and segmentation of when we're looking to highlight certain events at certain times. One of the things, as we're talking about online events, we have been discouraging people to put like a Zoom link here just because people could scrape it. And I think Zoom bombing is still, while it's not as popular maybe anymore, and that fad has gone away, which is great. It's not something that we want to put out there if it's going to be something on a public website, just because anybody can get to it. And depending on if you have your Zoom security set up appropriately, you may have people joining that you don't want to. So, so we have been discouraging this, and there's other ways to do that. So here's where I'm going to hit save. So I have kind of a very solid foundation. This still doesn't give me everything I need for the event. The other piece of this is the event description. And this is where we start to create the first page in that page architecture flow. So we're looking at event description. And that's demo. We can keep it really simple, right? We're using Salesforce's rich text editor. So if we want to make this text bigger, we want to be able to center this. All of that functionality is sitting here within Lightning. We want to add an image, right? We can throw an image in here to make that web page, a shortlisting description for a calendar. And then a footer. And the footer, when we talk about the experience of what we're doing in the event, the footer carries through on every page. So we tend to talk about the footer as what we'd want if like somebody has questions, right? Email us at gmail.com. And then somebody has somewhere they can go, whatever page they are. If they have call questions, you have contact information, and you don't have to recreate that on every single page. And then this last piece, this event full display text, if the event is actually closed because it's reached capacity, it's past the date, and somebody has a link that they're still clicking on, or it's just closed for whatever reason because you manually closed it, we want to make sure they don't just get to a dead end of a page. So we can put some specific text in here to kind of say, hey, like the event is now closed, please contact us with questions, or we can, or whatever the case is, particularly because we're not at a point of wait list, which you saw if you registered. about talking through that, but at least giving them enough context to take some action, and they're not just hitting a dead end. Otherwise, they'll just see a blank screen and they'll think that their web browser errored out. There. So this is the page. This is the first page, right? And this seems a lot shorter and simpler. As we go through these tab progressions, this is where we start to get to some additional configuration. This standard options and labels, this is going to be in our newer release. I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but I more so want to call this out and that we can change the text on the actual page. I'm not going to change anything right now, but we have these other options that we can ask. So if we want to ask about preferred first name, we can choose whether to ask and require that. So I'm going to put just ask. And right, if we wanted to change the label of that on the home screen, it's going to by default put preferred first name or on the registration page. But we've had a lot of requests to say like, hey, I actually don't want to use the word gender. I want to use something else. Or I think it came up specifically maybe with last name as a student. That is one to where that is very specific to higher ed. And in a nonprofit sense, we might want to put something like maiden name optional, just as an example. We'll just put ask. We'll hit save here. So we start to be able to customize some of the questions that we are asking as people are registering, and able to customize what it is they're doing. The phone one is here separately, just because there are some nuances to, I think, anybody asking a phone. And the way we have it is being able to ask and require types, so whether it's home or mobile, but then also be able to require one of them, right? So can we ask for both? Can we require both of them? And then depending on what they ask, do we want to be able to prompt them to ask about text messaging, being that's becoming in more common form, particularly within the event space, about texting reminders, or just being able to text the person individual specifically about that event. And now the one thing I'll call out too is I think Thad had mentioned in a in the Higher Dreamin' that I started to do this. I want to make sure Johnny and Mike get credit for actually building this out. I think I just took what they did and did it again because we kept having issues getting it actually into the right org. So kudos to Mike and Johnny on that one. The additional configuration is where we start to see whether we want to keep it open during the event. So if this is something people can register for continuously, we want to be able to do that. And then this is other way, if we want to close it before, this other attendees is a little bit different than the guest registration piece that we'll talk about later. And this is more kind of getting a number. So the use case here is, I'm going to use like a tour example. See all the St. Thomas people here. We want to know who the student is and who the student is coming, but we do not want to necessarily create a registration for both of their parents and their 3 siblings. But we want to know that 6 people are coming so that we can accommodate them appropriately. We have enough space in the waiting room, we have enough parking, whatever the case is. We want to be able to ask just how many, and then if there's email to that, or if there is a limit to that with this max of their attendees. Then the email restriction, this I would say is one of my favorite features personally, because it's making sure that somebody doesn't register an event multiple times. So you can do it at the event and at the instance level. So that if somebody puts in ryan.blake@cloudforgood.com 5 times, it's going to block them on the second time to say, hey, this email is already registered for this event. And then somebody continues to go through the process, potentially create another contact, all of that stuff. It just keeps some of that data clean. And then the things down here about asking some additional questions on the home page. And I think this is where we started to really expand of, can we ask more than 5 questions? But this right now is the standard within the package. If you were to download it right now from the App Exchange, you would see and get a list of optional questions you can ask each registrant with a place for it to go directly on the registration. As the page progression, I'm going to skip the guest registration because we'll talk about that later. But with the page progression, this is where you can start to build out each page. And I won't have an actual confirmation page because that will happen when you have kind of a secondary page to confirm all of your registration. Mine is very simple in that there's going to be, I'm sorry, I was wrong about that. The confirmation page will always show up. That is the kind of the final page of the entire page progression. The cancel page will also be there if you're going to share a hyperlink, which we generate a cancellation hyperlink, so that if you are no longer interested or you can't make it, you can click cancel. It'll update your registration, kind of saves the registrant some time from having to call, email, or the event team from just having a bunch of no-shows. They can see if people are proactively canceling and accommodate on the fly a little bit better. Additional questions page, again, being able to customize options or a sessions page. A submit page, this is where you would review kind of a lot of these things that are coming up here. You'd be able to review that on a submit page prior to actually making a submission. So I'm just going to put the confirmation page here just to keep it clean. And then the contact and lead matching. So this one, this is currently part of the package. The lead matching was the latest thing to come in here. Just knowing that everybody works with contacts and leads differently. But what we want to do is really be able to create new leads within the record itself to make sure that somebody isn't lost within your database, particularly when it comes to recruitment or donor management. If anybody's registering for something, they've shown some type of increased interest. But we also want to make sure we can customize our matching rules. So we leverage the Salesforce native duplicate rules. We can not only select this, but then we can add things. So if there's something specific for an admissions office that might be different from an advancement office and we're all using the same application, we can at least separate those enough to know that it's specific to our events, or if there's a certain type of event that might come up, it'd just be working with your Salesforce admins proactively to make sure that what the matching rule is going to be for certain types of events. Then you can select whichever one's going to make sense for you, and then what behavior you want to happen. So you can totally skip matching and not have a contact. I'm getting this backwards. You can skip creating a contact and just leave the registration kind of floating there to do some manual effort. Or if it does not find a match, you can have it create a contact. So you kind of get the choice of how you want to facilitate these to really flow into your CRM, either creating some additional manual work or doing the potential deduplication after the fact. And that's where you'd want to make the assessment based on your own strategy around data management. The other two that are here that I'm not going to go through at this point is event fees and donations. But just clicking on them, this is where you can see you can start to add fees to an event and do particular allocations. If we're talking about trying to get this to certain funds, as an example, particularly within the nonprofit space, thinking about like a general accounting unit type thing. And then donations and being able to facilitate kind of the donation process within here as well. So I'm going to save that. Nope, I didn't do the lead matching. So we do have some validation on here. I'm just going to put this as none. And we're not going to do any matching at this point. I don't think anything is set up in here. I could be wrong, but I'm not going to go through that right now. But we have the core of it. And I think because this is new, and for those who are unfamiliar with this process or with these tabs across the top, you can go from tab to tab and fill things out, and it will save it all at the end. So you don't feel like you have to go from tab and hit save, tab and hit save. It'll keep the whole thing editable all in one fell swoop. But now that I have the event, I still don't have something I can register for. So this is where I need to go over to the instance. I can click new, and I can do we'll do April demo. We can give this a new name as well. We can have a start date. So I think we'll go with April 15th, and we'll do this one at, let's see. I'm totally making this up. This is not an actual demo on this day yet, at least. But we can start to do this here, right? And let's say let's do some weird times, just for fun. And then do a time zone. So these time zones, this is, I would say, I think pulling straight out of Salesforce directly, if I'm not mistaken. But being able to set time zones so that whoever you are, being able to recognize that, like, while it says Central Time, for me, if somebody's registering from Mountain Time, they're going to be able to at least see that translation, particularly when it comes to the type of calendar. We're going to set this one as active, and we're going to set a capacity to 100. This is where we can put a virtual meeting link. And the idea of putting it here is that when somebody registers in a triggered email, that in that email, they can then have a link to that specific instance's Zoom webinar or Zoom room. So categorization, here's some override information to where if we want something to be different, like locations in a different spot, we can update those things right here, as well as fees, right? Because if we are incorporating payments, each instance might have its own fee associated to it. So once I save this, this is now allowing us to have a registerable event. Before I do that, I said I was going to come back to these registration links, and I want to do that while I'm here. The three things that are here are starting to kind of leverage some of the events beyond just a Salesforce purely registration tool. And I say that in the context of like this alternative registration URL. If we put another link in here, the event will still go into Salesforce and will feed to a calendar, which is actually what this link ends up taking us to. But when we click on it, it will then take us to whatever link we put in the alternative registration URL. So some of the thought concepts here are around like if you are partnering with another institution, or it's take a Minnesota-based higher ed example. If it's like a statewide supported touring event, so like Minnesota Private College Week as an example, who handles the registration or has handled the registration in the past, you could put their registration link there, have it appear on St. Thomas's calendar, and direct them to where that cooperative effort is happening. The second one here is this events feed, and I think this is more of like magic in my head. Oh, I don't have something going on right here. Might have to extend this by a day. But this event feed here is where you can start to customize things a little bit deeper. I need to, and of course, in a live demo, something's not going to work. Open. I'm not going to spend the time to dwell on this. So what I'm going to do, just to give the example, I go here. This one is going to show a JSON feed of the instances that are created for this event, in which this is where you could then give this to a web team and have them start to display things on your website in whatever format and design that they choose. So it starts to make a really customizable experience where then that button that they click and register on takes them to that instance registration page. And I think that's what we see if you were to look at a couple other schools' websites. We would actually see some of that live and in action. Which makes it kind of extends it beyond just it being central to Salesforce, though you would not have to do that. It's just more of an option to take advantage of. But now that I have this instance, if I come back to this demo one, I should be able to click register, and I can now see the event form that I created. Again, I did it very simple. You can see that the customized label that I put in there is sitting right on top. The details, all of that is there. And then this is where I like to say that a lot of this is, it's all real time. So if I were to change this template as the example, and then come here and refresh it, that template's going to change automatically as well. So anything that you change within that event, to say like somebody's like, oh, there's a typo or somebody calls something out, like you can make that quick fix and you don't have to wait for it to push. Like you might have to wait for a website to refresh or anything like that. It's just all in real time. So that is the simple event. And I think the last thing is just calling out the QR code that I know we've used a couple of times. I think people have questioned, well, if you're having people sign up virtually, what's the point? And I think the point is paper is still very real in nonprofit and education spaces. And if we're doing mailers, sometimes it's easier to have somebody scan a QR code than to actually type in a URL, even if it's a short bit.ly type link. So just kind of helps streamline that process. I don't know if you have anything you want to add, or Mike, if you want to add anything as part of the project team for just like a simple, or any experienced users.
Just answering questions here, but
Are you?
I would open up to anybody's questions if they have any.
Thought that was a real good overview, and how the page layouts now, I think that facilitates that even more.
Like I said, kudos to you on working on that.
Thanks.
Building out that idea. So
I have a question. Hi, Ryan.
yeah. Hi, Kate.
Okay, I know this isn't new, but what is it? Oh, the email, like max email capacity, so that you can set it to like one registrant per instance or one registrant per event.
Yes.
I'm wondering if the communication that a guest would see is editable.
That's a good
So if
question.
they tried to register again, right, for an instance or event, what
Yep.
do they see, and can we edit that for specific events?
Yeah,
It
I think
isn't right now, it's hard coded. So, but it's definitely something we shouldn't have hard coded.
And the reason I'm asking is because I'm just thinking of a parent of a twin, for example, who might try to register 2 students using their email address, which we obviously don't want them to do, but to be able
Right.
to have something that says, like, if you're registering for 2 students, please consider using the student's email address or something like that.
Right. That's good feedback. I think that it looked like that you might be writing something down. Can't
Yeah,
tell.
because I mean, we're slowly getting rid of all this kind of hard coded messaging we had in there to make it more the ability for you to control it. And that's definitely one thing we'd want. And it's not a hard thing to fix. We just have to add another field that you have to configure. And maybe we'll probably do it the same way where we have the default version and you can edit and make a better version. Like for instance, that, that didn't really stand out when that page reloaded. Be nice if
Right.
it was red and big or whatever.
That
Right.
would be awesome.
Well, and
Thank
that
you.
partly might be part of the template too, right? But anyways, yeah.
And I think that's maybe something we might try to eke into this next release because it's not too hard to do. And it goes along with the theme of what we're trying to accomplish in this release.
Mhm. Question. Why don't I pass it over to you? Because I kind of talked about this labeling piece. Now this is something, I think what's exciting is that this is something that came out of a sprint. A lot of people had kind of voiced their opinion about some of this and wanted to really make it happen. And then it was at a sprint that we do at least 3 times a year that there was somebody who actually just built it while we were there, which was really exciting. It just has taken us longer than maybe any of us had wanted to get it in there. We're hoping that now that we are an official package, as we have these sprints, we can get those things into our releases a little bit faster than what we did as we were going through security review before. So
I think that's good to highlight for the people from St. Thomas here. One of the really great things that happened about open sourcing this is we got to go through security review, which means Salesforce tried to break in and steal data out of our system. And that normally doesn't happen at St. Thomas, where we get that kind of level of scrutiny. And so we got that by going through this process. It wasn't easy and it took time, but we can now be more sure about the product we're using, that it's safe and we won't get any kind of weirdness happening in it.
I didn't show anything on the registration field. I'm going to do that quick because I think there's some things in here that some current users haven't seen before. One of them particularly being like these hyperlinks to calendars. So now as we email people registration, we can have some, add this to your calendar with some details pre-filled in there. So you remember when to show up and what it is they signed up for, to a variety of calendars straight from their phone. And then still some more of that time zone stuff that will, particularly with the calendar stuff, adjust depending on what time zone they're in. And then the matching log will also be here too, right? It'll tell you if a new contact is created, if there's matching, who it matched with, all of that existing here too, along with all the other fields that most people have been used to who've used the tool, but all of that being captured specifically on this registration page. So
At some point we talked about dynamic questions. Is that something that Summit Events can handle? I don't know
that's
if
a
I'm calling
great
it the right thing.
transition to pass
Oh,
it over to
good.
Thad in the
Okay.
question object. So you want me to keep sharing or stop sharing?
No, I'll share my screen.
Okay.
There. You see the screen?
Yep.
Great. So I'm going to play around with this live event that some people signed up for and discuss our new object that we've created. And when you saw that object architecture, that was one highlighted in blue because it's brand new for this release and it accomplishes a lot of things. One is being able to ask any question you want to your registrant and have it mapped to the registration field or a registration field that you define or that already exists and you're just telling it to go there. And the other one is how you go about asking about guest information, because I saw on the toggling when Ryan was showing you the toggles where you can ask and require, there's a artifact of one of the routes we're going to have to get rid of there where it says ask and require of guest. But then we started to think, well, what you ask a guest is really can be really specific. You don't really want it to be required a lot of the time. You might want to phrase it a different way, all sorts of things. So one of the ways we opened all this up to, you getting full control over the question, all sorts of aspects of it, and I'll show you that in a second, and being able to ask the guest specific questions. The idea is that the questions you ask of a guest will actually turn them into a registrant of the event. So, I mean, one good thing might be to ask the first name, last name always in the email if you want. But what happens at the end of that registration is, as that person has signed up their guests, those guests become registrants of the event. And those registrations look up to the person who registered those people. So number one, you can check everybody in on their registration, which is important to know who was there. And number two, you get to know who brought whom, and it kind of hangs off their registration. So you can see everyone. This is going to be really crucial for things like we have a whole app that was running just to run group visits for young people, and you'd want to get all their names. This will allow you to do that. And then probably I should shut up and just start showing you what it looks like. If we go to this registration, I'm just going to start registering. This is all normal stuff. These are additional questions that you can build with the additional question fields that are available on Summit events. And many of you are aware of those kind of things. I'm going to leave all this stuff blank because it isn't required. So if you have an additional question set up, there's a page for that. So in the toggle method of getting an event registration, you can toggle on and off a bunch of predefined questions that we've built for you. But if you wanted to just ask first name, last name, and email on the first page and then jump to all your questions on this page, you would have a lot more control over those questions. So we can see here we have what school or organization do you work for or represent? And we'll take a quick look at what that question object looks like. So let's see. So in this particular case, you can see that there are multiple questions hanging off this event, and you can make new ones from here if you want to. And when you make one, you get the option of labeling it, which is kind of an internal label of what you would call it, maybe for internal reporting or for internal reminding of what this question is about. But then you have a question label, which you can adjust to anything you want or any language you want. And this kind of opens up Summit events to maybe more audiences than just US audiences, which is kind of exciting. Those changes to who you work for. You can put a default value in there. This is kind of a weird thing, but I think we had a use case in one of our sprints where you might want to have a question there that was already filled out that you wouldn't want them to see, but then would track all the way to their registration record. In that case, you wouldn't want it to be visible, and you'd probably have a default value in there. You can do.
Can you share an example of when you would use that, Thad?
I don't remember what the example was, but
Okay.
I mean, for some kind of tracking, I suppose, do you remember what that example was, Ryan?
Part of me wants to say it would be like, I think some of it comes to individual organizations and schools as data model, but like it'll capture that this was a guest. But if you wanted to add that as a hidden value, it could be adding a hidden value of like a campaign ID. It could be, yeah, it's,
If we're having like a high school counselor event, could the question be like, who are you, or what type of contact should be created, right? And then we would want to create a counselor contact as opposed to a student, or is that's like beyond what this does?
that
you
might
know
be
what
a
I'm asking?
post, that might be a post registration piece. I think
Okay.
if we're thinking about this from a additional question piece or details we know we're going to get, this could be where if it's like, if I'm thinking about this in a school sense, we might want to, right now we have the ability to like do some pre-asking of like first year transfer. But if that wasn't there, we could say this is a first year event only. So let's make sure that like everybody who submits always has a first year tag as associated to their registration, but let's not have them select that. Or if it's a high school visit and everybody's going to be coming from the same high school that they're registering for, or everybody's going to be from the same whatever, we can pre-fill all of those things without asking them to have to fill it out. So yeah, some of it is escaping me what we talked about at that specific sprint, but there's enough of a case to build it in.
Okay, so can I just make sure I'm understanding? Sorry, this is Mary Pat. So it would be like it could be a question that we don't actually need to ask the guest, but we want an answer to tracked on their record.
I would almost say it's not a question that you want or need to ask, but it's information that you want to be associated to their event registration record.
Okay. But I don't need to ask them to get it, and that's why I can click not visible.
Right.
Or unclick visible. Got you. Okay, thank you.
Some other things you have full control over is like the error assistant text. So if I were to try to hit next here, this text here you have control over. You also have control over this little bubble for extra help. So this is instructions. Oh, instructions appear right here, but instructions are here. I'm going to move this over so I can go back and forth easier. So this is your instructions here. Your help text is up here, and your error text would appear here. So you can see when you start filling this out, it goes away. But down below here, you have, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, hey, Thad, if this had existed 5 years ago, you and I would have never had to talk.
Well, I appreciate talking to you.
No, but this is so cool.
But a lot of this stuff came out of talking to you, so that was a good thing. You can see here, this is the mapping where this is going to land on the registration record. Everything has to land on the registration record. We don't allow you to like throw this around your org and different objects. I think we found at St. Thomas, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, that it's really helpful just to have it all landed on one record. You can see what's going on with the registration without having all these dangling objects in the one thing that doesn't follow that rule, of course, is appointments, which you have some more work you have to do on them, so they don't really land on the registration. But you can see here, Summit is in the front of it when you install Summit Events as a package. If you've been using like UST Events or a non-packaged version of Summit Events, you won't see this, but this becomes part of the API name. So this is really the API name of the registration record on the registration record. You can see also that you have abilities to limit text size for a text field. You can have a pick list as an option. I think we have one right here. So it's similar to the additional questions feature that's already built in, but kind of opens it up to as many of those kinds of things as you want, or as many fields as you can land things on the registration. this part here, I'm not going to go really into because I don't really have any records exposed that we could try, and it would take some time to show you. I'll probably demo this at some point as just a video that I put together. But this allows you, and then in the case of UST events, one of the really important things is that you be able to look up your high school or look up your college. This allows you to do that in the additional questions, things where you define what object and what fields in Salesforce you're looking up to. In this case, in a demo that I do, I load a bunch of accounts that are schools, and I look up to the account record, and you can real-time search the account records that have designated as educational institutions, and then you can choose one. So this kind of replaces what was in UST events, but also you have all the control you want over the wording. And then you also can, and of course you need your admin to open up those records so that the guests can see these values, but you're able to look up to other records in Salesforce and have it searchable and choosable by the user. And in our case at St. Thomas, we'll use this for what high school do you go to? We'll go search through our high school inventory for their high school. And then there are some other things here that allow you to like ask a plain text answer if they can't find it. So oftentimes if their high school isn't in our database, or maybe they don't know what their high school's real name is, they can enter it by manual, and you kind of have a way to land that in two different places. The nice thing about this, as opposed to what we're doing in UST events, is this will actually look up to the record of that high school or that college as a lookup field. So you'll be able to go and scan up to that particular school. But that's a little bit more detailed, but it's a really cool and a very powerful feature. I'm going to go ahead.
Let's do a quick time check. We got about 9 minutes. So if you want to talk about the guests or whatever you do next.
Let's just go through and do the guest thing. Where's my registration? I'm a developer. So here's our guest page. These are all defined again with that question object. So I'm going to go back to the event and we'll go look at all the questions. And you can see I labeled them guest first name, last name, email. One thing we should put on this list is if you, let's see, that was the guest role. One thing you can do is actually, if you don't want to define two separate things, you can ask of both guest and registrant. So it'll appear on both those pages, that first one we just looked at and the new one. But as you register guests, you can continue to add guests all you want. And you have the ability to actually limit the amount of guests you can add. So if you only wanted to be able to have 2, you could say 2, and then it would, as you go up to the end of this, this will error out and you won't be able to add anymore. And you can delete them by hitting here. At this point, they're not registrations, but they are. They will be as soon as the person who's registering finishes their registration. So at the end of the process of a person registering for an event, these are all kind of waiting in the wings, ready to go. And then as soon as they hit, they get to the registered status, all this information gets turned into registrations that look up to that person. So just go ahead. There's the appointments. Probably not going to go through those. We've got some exciting ideas about how to expand on appointments. And then as you get to the last page, you get to review your guests and everything else. And if you're wrong, you can keep hitting previous and go back and, delete the ones you didn't want. I'm going to submit. Hopefully this all works flawlessly, because I can show you then that. Let's see, registrations. So these hosted registrants are the people that I registered, and they appear attached to my registration. So you have this connection between the person who registered people and the registrant. One thing we'll probably be working on is a status where a person can register other people but not attend the event. We haven't really come up with the solution of how to word that.
Kate
As-
asked a good question about when you were going back to the previous and that page of the guests. Were
Yep.
you able to edit the things you already input, or would you have to delete and re-register?
You'd have to delete that person and add them again. Yeah, I did have and one way I had it working at one point where it would pull everything back into that registration field there. You know, all the information that was in that box would go back into the form. It became complicated for some reason. I can't remember, and I didn't go back to it. But I also thought it's not really that hard to just delete and add again. But so the question object, again, it just opens up the ability to ask. One other thing I was going to point out was right now I have them landing on standard objects. You could always add objects that aren't packaged with Summit events. And like if I made a new field that was like Thad's text area,
Land on new fields, not new objects.
new fields, yep.
And now as a Salesforce admin, one of the things I would say is you don't want to go about creating 800 new fields. So, but
No.
if there is something that says become really consistent
Hopefully,
of a thing.
yeah, hopefully you have an admin in your mix who's helping you make those fields. If you're not an admin yourself. So if I wanted to now, I could add the test would be where I'd want to land it. As you can see, let's do a quick look. Add test doesn't have Summit in front of it because it's your custom field. So when I enter where it lands, I enter that instead of the Summit _ blah blah. So you can see that the question object kind of balloons Summit events into much more than it used to be. You can really customize everything about it. We're working on getting everything that's hard coded into a state where you can adjust it and get your own language in place, whether it be a different language or just different wording. So we're really excited.
So to go back to Kate's original question about dependent questions, I believe the answer is dependent questions. We have the fields there, and I think you may have maybe caught that when Thad was on the question record. But I don't think we have it fully functional quite yet. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's something that's on our roadmap. It takes a little bit more effort, and we wanted to release this part first and then kind of make that happen in the next release, just so we can get this part fairly solid and then be able to work on kind of how that looks, because there are a lot of ways I could do it, but they may not make sense in the end when you look at it. So it's one of those items where we want to have our sprint teams look at it and say, you know, if I had a dependent question, I'd want it to look like this. I want to, you know, identify the question this way that it's dependent upon, identify the answer I'm expecting and how this question will be activated. So those kind of layouts and what kind of fields it might take to do that is something we'd like to workshop.
That's awesome. We'll be so excited when that is in the real life. We'll use it a lot, I think.
Awesome. With about a minute left, are there any other questions, thoughts, feedback people have?
This stuff is great. I can't wait to learn more.
Awesome. Well, and we're going to keep doing these. I believe we're going to try and do these on a monthly basis, as well as having some more like instructional or shorter demo videos out there on a YouTube channel, so that a lot of that content will be readily accessible.
Should
And
pop
then
up
these-
your slide that
Oh,
shows how to.
slide. Yeah. Let's see here. I don't know if that shows or not. Wait, which one? This one?
Yep.
So there's a couple things right out here. We have the Trailblazer community, which if you're not already a part of that, I would encourage you to sign up and then join. As I anticipate, especially in 2022, having more conversation and as more people start to use Summit events, either getting new ideas about how to leverage the tool or sharing ideas on just things that are happening within the community itself. As well as our posts about what's coming up, new sprints, things like that. You'll see we're on YouTube. So you can see that short link of summitevt.org/YouTube, and it will take you some of the videos out there. We'll post this one out there. And then for those who want to go through GitHub, that is where we have a lot of our documented instructional text that you can review as well. So there's a lot of places to engage and connect. I encourage you to definitely join the Trailblazer community, especially as questions come up, because then those questions can sometimes be answered by other people using the tool as well, and not just the volunteer team for the project. So,
And on that open source commons Trailblazer community, make sure to check out if there's a sprint and you can spend a couple days, or sometimes there's mini sprints that are just a day, and then there are full sprints which used to be in person but have been virtually since COVID started. It's a 2-day thing, and you get to choose your project, and Summit Events is one of many projects, but you can come interact with a whole host of people from nonprofits and other people who have been kind of boosting some of these things you're seeing along, and you can be a part of that.
Awesome. I know people are starting to jump, so appreciate it. We got to some questions, which has been great. We look forward to seeing you guys more in future. Thanks all.
Yeah.
Stop the recording.